Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to What Happened When? With the voice of your childhood, Tony Schiavone. Tony, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing all right, Conrad. How are you doing?
Man, I am great because we're doing something totally different today. We're breaking the format, man. We're doing something we've never done before. We've got a guest.
Boy, do we ever have a guest. And we have a guest that means a lot to me. It means a lot to fans who grew up watching the old TBS shows, fans who lived in the North Carolina, South Carolina, Mid-Atlantic area. Means a lot to them. And with us is a guy that I do not connect with enough, and that's why I'm really glad we're talking to him. It's David Crockett. Hey, David, how are you, buddy?
Hey, Tony, how are you? You notice I'm trying to look like you. You know, I've got a little beard. Now, you know, mine's a little lighter,
right?
Because of the season, so you know.
Well, it's a well-known fact, and Conrad will be the first to say it because Conrad knows nothing. But we were talking to you before we rolled record here, and Conrad seems to think that what he and I do on our podcast, on our podcast, is watch old wrestling shows. But what we do on our podcast is for 2 or 3 hours, just make fun of me.
Sure.
So basically, it's well known that I do color my beard. Now, I don't color my hair yet. That's going to come, I'm sure. But I do color my beard. So, but you look ruggedly handsome.
I'm sorry, I've got my feet up now. Get a little deep. Yep, get a little deep.
Well, we're so excited to have you. You know, it's fun to reunite you guys. The whole theme of our show is based on, you know, Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, Jim Crockett Promotions. And if you're watching this video over at adfreeshows.com, we've even sort of recreated the set, and to have you two guys again on that same set that we all grew up watching is just so cool. And I appreciate you taking time, especially this close to Christmas, to get together with us and do this.
Oh, I'm more than happy to do it. You know, Conrad, you're a great guy, but when Tony asked me, I said, I have to do it. You know, we've spent so much of our life together, you know, in broadcasting and out of it. We spent there was so much that we've done together.
Yeah.
You know, wow. You know, it would take weeks to talk about it. Weeks.
Let me ask you, David, before we talk about how you and I met and the great years that we had together, how's Valerie and how are your kids, Mark and Julie? And I'm sure you got grandchildren too, right?
Oh, yes. Matter of fact, we're here in Raleigh right now. Julie, my daughter, is a nurse anesthetist, and her husband is a civil engineer. And I have 2 grandchildren here, so we're here in Raleigh with them, and then we'll drive back Christmas Eve,
right,
to be with Mark and his 2 children. And then we'll be like most grandparents. We'll have Christmas alone because everybody will be doing their thing. So,
sure.
Yeah. But yeah, everything's great. COVID sucks.
Sure.
But, yeah.
Does it ever? And Mark still lives in Charlotte?
Yes, he does. That he
Okay.
does, and he works for, I can say this, Aon, entertainment insurance. He does so much with them. That's the way he got into television, you might say, and entertainment.
Okay.
But the family's great. I am so blessed right now with that.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm very glad to hear that. I did see on Facebook, I think on Valerie's page, where she showed some old scorecards from Augusta National.
That's right. Yeah,
that's right.
Her father, Val Hastings, holds the record at Augusta National for the most birdies in a row.
Wow.
And at 7, and he started on number 10. And also, he has a card where he beat Ben Hogan.
Well,
beat him by 1 stroke. It
right.
came to the final hole there and beat him by 1 stroke. So, yeah.
Wow. That is some golf history.
It is. And that's why I always enjoyed going out there. I spend more time talking to him and other old members than really watching the tournament, because they, spent what they needed to make the course, the very best.
Yeah.
And I had the pleasure of meeting Cliff Roberts, and, that was special, definitely special. But, that's it. Now, how's Lois?
The same. She is just an older version of the same person. So yeah, thanks for asking.
Everybody in your family, I know grandkids and all that.
We got 5 grandkids, 1 on the way, and we're going to try to get together with them during Christmas weekend. And yeah, it's a great time. It really is. I'm very blessed too. I really am. And I'm so blessed that I got to know Conrad Thompson, because I didn't realize pieces of shit lived in Huntsville, Alabama.
Wow. That's hurtful. We have feelings over here.
Oh, you do?
Barely. Guys, I'm curious. How did this all get started? Did y'all first meet through baseball? Is that right?
Yeah.
Well,
somewhat, right?
Yeah, somewhat. Tony was the announcer for the Greensboro, right? The Greensboro baseball team that Francis owned part of. And we needed another announcer. And, Tony, I think he showed up in, a town in South Carolina. That was the first time I saw you. And I said, oh, God, he looks like a baby. We need to have him grow a mustache or something.
Yeah, that's right. You guys had me grow a mustache. You did.
Yeah.
I remember, David, that when I got the job in Charlotte from Greensboro, that meeting Francis, because I knew of you guys. I mean, I knew of the family, and I knew of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. And I remember getting that job thinking, man, I'd love to do some wrestling. And I told Francis that from the get-go. And, she was like, she said, if you start working for my brothers, you're going to get caught in the middle, and that's not going to be good for you. And it was tough at times. It really was, because she wanted me to be at the ballpark, and you guys wanted me to do wrestling. And
yes.
So it was at times. And, but I made it through it. And, but I do remember talking to you about that. And you were kind of, you couldn't really agree or to do anything. And finally, you gave me a chance to go down, and I got to work with Big Bill Ward down in the studios. Bill Ward and I would do things. And David, you remember those days of doing promos in the back, how long they were, and how much effort and time?
Right. Do you remember the pinball machine we had back there for the guys?
Sure do.
Pinball machine. Yeah. It, matter of fact, the people, when they came up from Turner to buy us, they said, this is a sausage factory. You guys just crank and crank product out. And we said, yeah. I mean, you think about it, we would tape our shows, come back, plug it in to the quote umbilical cord there at the office.
Right.
And Wayne Daniel, and we start making dubs.
Right.
And the next day, cut interviews, and then start inserting interviews into the shows.
Yeah.
And kick them out the door.
Right. That's right.
82 or 83 stations, we would do that.
Wow.
That was something. And we did it, we did a great job. Emerson Lawson, he never fixed anything, but he make it work. Never fixed anything. What a great guy. Wonderful engineer.
Oh yeah. He was really, really, really intelligent, knew a lot of things. And yeah, Emerson and Wayne Daniel.
Right.
And Wayne's, and of course we had the girls in the office. I was thinking about them today, like Pat and Brenda Evans,
right,
in the office.
And then there was Tressie that
I remember Tressie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course Sandy Scott was in her office, and Gene Anderson was kind of the producer of those interviews in the back. And just dealing with Gene Anderson was absolutely, because I had watched Gene and Ole wrestle, and now Gene was kind of bossing me around, and he would say many times, because the guys were all over the place, right? All over the office.
Yeah.
And he would say, okay, the next one is going to be Flair, Tully, Arn. Where's that goddamn Ric Flair? Would somebody go get him? And they would have to chase him down in the office. He's always in there kissing Dusty's ass.
That's right. They either kiss Dusty's ass or Jimmy's ass.
So those were special times, and those were all day things. I mean, they really were, because after we did those, we would do them for other markets. We would send things out to Bob Geigel or send things down to Florida that they would need. So it was a special time, and it was a special time because we were just beginning Starrcade. And of course that was the first real mega event in pro wrestling. Now, Dave, before we go there, I want to get fans caught up, because Jim Crockett Promotions, a fixture in Charlotte, not only in promoting wrestling, but your father, he promoted some other events as well, right?
Oh, yeah. He promoted entertainment events. He had, all right, the Summer Theater there at the Ovens Auditorium.
Right.
He had the Pops concerts in Freedom Park.
Okay.
He also had Country and Western, Ice Capades, the circus. Golly, what else? He even backed the Shrine Bowl several years and getting them, up and running. So, and rock shows. You're talking, from the Dick Clark Caravan of Stars, where I'd see Dionne Warwick. She was an opening act. Then she'd come out and sell programs. And then he also had Andy Williams, Henry Mancini there at the Coliseum. It was a 1-week promotion, sold it out. It was a record for the Southeast at that time. Then boxing, Joe Louis, Jack Dempsey, because Dad started in boxing. When I think his mother passed away when he was about 6 in Bristol, Tennessee, Virginia. And to make money, Dad would put out boxing cards for this guy. And eventually, when he got of age, took off with him and started promoting boxing.
Wow.
Then he got into the Carolinas. And that was when we had boxing and wrestling commissions. And Charlotte or Mecklenburg County required that the boxing / wrestling promoter be a resident of Mecklenburg County. So Dad wanted to settle in Greensboro, but then they moved to the Mecklenburg Hotel and set up shop there. Wow. And the rest is history. I mean, wow, something else. Then we also had the hockey team. He didn't, but the Winston-Salem Polar Twins. They're in Winston-Salem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's a very varied and expansive entertainment career for the family. So you grew up in entertainment, and talk about growing up with your father as a big promoter, or growing up, in wrestling. Uh,
Well, Dad, the wrestlers would come to the house,
yeah.
and at one point, Mom had this sort of off-white carpet. And one rainy day, they came in and they tracked mud on her carpet.
Uh-oh.
Well, so she went out. That was a death wish, as far as that. And so she went out and found the office on East Moorhead, 1111 East Moorhead, and said, "This is where you're going. That's it. You're out of here." So, and that's where, then everything started. The wrestlers going there, with the bookers. I mean, there were some, it started with that I remember as a kid, George Becker. It was the main booker, and it became a tag team territory. And we had territories at that time. Mm. And putting out posters. I'd drive all over the area, down to Shelby and Belmont and Gastonia, up to Kings Mountain, Hickory, putting out posters for Monday night at Park Center. And if there was one of Dick Clark's Caravan of Stars coming through, I put out posters for that, or take tickets, and eventually, when I got to the point, I would, sell tickets, there in the box office,
mm-hmm.
Which, working for your father in the box office selling tickets, that's hard, because
I bet.
Yeah, anybody else can make a mistake, but you cannot, and you pay the price too.
Yeah,
definitely pay the price.
I'm curious.
Pay the bills. Pay the bills.
Your family becomes, master promoters at a lot of genres. When did wrestling sort of emerge as okay, we've got our finger in a lot of pies, but this is going to be the real thing here?
When the Coliseums or arenas started, when you had the managers of those arenas and Coliseums suddenly realized, well, golly, if we cut out the promoter, then we get a bigger percentage. So like the Ice Capades and the Country and Western, they started promoting that themselves.
I see.
The bigger names coming through, whether it was Elvis Presley or that, at one point we were doing all that. The cities at that time were not willing to put out that much cash that the event person would want. So they let the promoter put out the cash, and so for that we would get our percentage, but we'd have to pay all the expenses, whether it was all the advertising, all the crazy things that the entertainers would want in their dressing room, the orchestra, as far as the guy coming in and tuning the piano and having a certain piano, making sure that there were only white M&Ms in the dressing room. I mean, you'd have to go through a bag of M&Ms at that time and just pull out white, because some of the entertainers, especially the rock groups, that's the only thing they wanted. Special beer, so, but then the Coliseums and arenas were willing to do that themselves. And so wrestling was always the one that we could control, that, we didn't have to worry about another promoter, someone between us and the entertainer, right. So, and that we could control the flow of the wrestling or the event. In other words, we could have it in Charlotte, we could have it in Greenville, but we also could have it at the Hickory high school football field in the summertime, or we could have it at an armory down in Lumberton, North Carolina. That is when we could control that piece.
When do you think you guys developed like your own real territory? About what year would that have been if you had to guess?
Wow. Probably in I want to say middle 40s.
Wow.
You still had the Virginia was a little iffy up there near, well, Peter Postaloo around Lynchburg and Roanoke.
Yeah.
Then up towards Asheville was a challenge for a while. Then let me think. Well, Henry Marcus wanted to do it himself for the longest time, but then
I laugh when I hear you say Henry Marcus's name.
Oh yeah. Only he and Pete, they were one of a kind. I mean, really, wow. Something else there.
Yeah, but, I want to tell you a story that I know you know, but I don't know if the fans ever heard this. And Conrad, it's a good one. When Ole was booking, he used to say, Henry would call, say, "You got a good card for me?" And Ole would say, "Yeah, Henry, listen, we got this great card, and here's what we got for you." And right as Ole would get ready to tell him the card, Ole would hang up the phone.
I can see that.
Henry Marcus would call back. And he said, and Ole would say, "God damn it, Henry! If you don't want a good card, fuck it. I'm not going to give you this card if you're going to hang up on me." Henry says, "No, we got disconnected." Ole said, "Okay, all right, here's the card." He said, "I'd hang up again."
Yep.
So Henry would call back again. He'd do it a third time. He said sometimes Henry would drive from South Carolina to Charlotte after he hang up on him a couple times to get the card. Oh God, Henry. Wow. Thanks for bringing that name up, David.
Tremendous.
Oh yeah. Now, you're talking about Ole. Here's a guy that always loved Mother Earth, the magazine that was published near Hendersonville.
Okay.
And when we'd drive up to Asheville, he'd always want to stop by there because he always wanted to retire. He had a half a section of land up in Minnesota, and he was going to have his own trout farm, and he was figuring out he could get methane, out of human waste and animal waste and create his own. He was just always thinking about this. Well, look, it never happened. But here's a guy that was so gruff and obnoxious, and here he was thinking about, I could go out and saw my own trees and have my own fish.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good God, so many characters. Okay, so David Crockett, I think Sandy Scott showed me a picture when I was working in the office, and I'd worked in the office. Sandy Scott and I shared an office in the back. Dusty had the office, Jimmy had an office, you had an office, and then Gene Anderson had an office that I think he shared with someone. But Sandy Scott slipped me a photograph, and he said, "Do you know who this guy is?" And it was a picture of a wrestler. It was black and white, standing in the ring with a jacket on, and he was smiling, and it was obviously you from the smile. And I went, "Wait, David wrestled?" And he said, "Yes, he did." So you did wrestle, right? And how did that start?
Yeah, I did. Dad asked me, he said, no one in the family has ever wrestled. They don't understand the wrestler's brain or that part of it. And and I was an amateur and wasn't married, at the time. And I said, "Oh, why not?" Okay. And what a mistake that was. You had, when you have people like Rip Hawk, Gene Anderson, Ole Anderson, Sweet Hansen, Johnny Heidemann, all these guys sort of working with you, but taking out their frustrations on you too.
Yep.
I lasted for about a year and a half. And I could count the light bulbs in the arenas because I spent all my time on my back.
Lois did in the 80s too. Hey, so, in my research, I think I saw that, Crockett joined the National Wrestling Alliance in 52. Is that right?
Could be. That sounds right. But, but Vince McMahon Sr. was part of the national, the National Wrestling Alliance. So
Right.
you had all these different groups that had their own group, but they were, I think probably the impetus for that was Sam Mushnick.
Mm-hmm.
That he was always I think until he passed away, that he was the president of the National Wrestling Alliance. And it was controlled from out there.
Right.
The South had really no say so.
Did you go to many of those meetings? Those are sort of famous, almost mob-like meetings now in hindsight, the way people talk about them.
I went. I know they had one in St. Louis because our mother packed us up. I think it might have been just younger brother Jackie and I. And we took the train to St. Louis for one of those meetings. And then I went with my father to Las Vegas a couple times, which, of course, I never saw what was going on because he'd always tell me, wait out here.
Right.
Always wait out here. And same thing with the arenas. He never, quote, smartened me up, so to speak. It was wait out here. And then he finally said, there is a hard way and a better way. Which would you rather do? So. But and then Jimmy was more involved with that, and former brother-in-law John Ringley, especially John was first, then Jimmy, and Johnny went with Dad at first. He was a talker, definitely a talker, good salesman, and then Jimmy was, Jimmy.
Why didn't John last?
Why didn't he last?
Was it just not his thing? Did he not have a passion for it the way you and Jimmy did?
He had what you call an affair.
Oh, there we go.
That sort of, when you're that doesn't work. Yeah. He was,
Yes.
matter of fact, we had 72 dates a year on the Harlem Globetrotters, and he met this woman in Memphis, Tennessee, and that's
all she wrote.
Yeah.
So,
matter of fact, he was the best man at my wedding. He didn't show up.
Really?
Yeah.
He no-showed your wedding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Boy, that killed it right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah.
That's another podcast in itself. Listen, David, so when your dad passed away in the early 70s.
Yes.
And so did Jimmy and Johnny take over the reins of the company at that time? Or did
Jimmy did.
Jimmy did. Okay. Johnny was out of the picture by then.
Johnny was on his way out.
Okay. All right.
Tony, when did you start watching?
Too, with the company, you got to realize that, my father ran the company out of his shirt pocket. I mean, all the information, all the contacts and everything, it was through Jim Crockett, and handshakes, not written contracts, and TV deals. Think about the Harlem Globetrotters, 72 days a year. He and Abe Saperstein had a handshake, on this is what the deal is. Nothing written on paper. And that was for years and years. And the same thing with buildings, with Mr. Oshus up in Greensboro, Paul Buck in Charlotte. There were so many buildings that all it took is a handshake, and that was through him. So when he passed away, you think about the bank, creditors, and everybody else, they're going, who the hell is this person, Jim Crockett Jr.?
Right.
And or any of us, and so we had to rebuild our credibility. Yeah. With the wrestlers, that was a big deal. I mean, if you think about, they're going, there was a jockey in there. You could see in certain areas, the Henry Marcuses too, of areas of going, okay, maybe we'll start our own, promotion and cut them out and have our own wrestlers. And so you had to show yourself, quite a lot and build up communication between us and the wrestlers, and the buildings and the newspapers and banks and everybody else.
Sure.
So
the Crockett family became really entrenched in Charlotte. I mean,
yes.
that's very well known. And now Jimmy and you and have different roles. You're moving forward. When did you start announcing? Do you remember around that time? Was it like in the 40s, David? No, really. When did you start announcing?
Yeah. Sure. Yes. Well, it was when Tom Miller showed up at WRAL. There again, he was a little inebriated, and
Yeah.
Jimmy and I flipped a coin, and I lost, so I had to announce.
Wow.
And then
That's it in a nutshell, and that's how it started. Yeah.
Oh.
Tony,
Jimmy came running. Yeah, we can't let him on. Plus, you got to remember, Tom was way over 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
So he's taller than most wrestlers. So
Right.
Here, this guy, and we have to get him to sort of stoop down a little bit to talk to the wrestlers because he made them look like midgets. So that's how I started announcing. I want to say, well, it was after Dad passed away.
So okay, we're talking about the 70s.
Yes,
74 later then.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, because I remember, I mean, I started watching Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling like in 1977.
Okay.
And you were on TV at that time. So it had to be a little bit earlier than that or around that time.
Right.
Probably. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sort of a blur.
Oh, I know.
Some of these days. Wow.
Tony, how old were you when you were watching?
When I started watching wrestling, in 77, I was 20 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you never met David at the shows? The first time you met him was outside of wrestling, right?
Well, no, I went to, I met David because I wanted, I kept asking Frances, I'd like to get into wrestling. She said, well, you got to talk to my brothers. And then she said, of course, if it happens, you're going to be put in the middle. So I remember there was a show or something and I went up and talked to David, and I was the baseball announcer at that time.
Yeah. Union, South Carolina. That's where it
Okay.
was.
All
That
right.
was the first show
All right.
that you came in and did it. And yes,
Yeah.
Frances was definitely pissed off.
Oh yeah, I know.
Ooh,
It was-
big time. I mean, it's a wonder she didn't scratch your eyes out.
Yeah.
And she made your life miserable.
Yeah, she did. I mean, she did.
Yeah. Yeah,
She,
I know.
I mean, she enjoyed it. She,
I'd rather have her do it to you than me.
she told me after I did that one thing with Flair, she called me back into her office at the ballpark. She said, all right, I knew this would happen. They want you to come down on Wednesdays and do the interviews at the office. She says, it's going to be tough for you. I said, all right, I'll do it. And so there it was. So that's where it happened. So David, now I started working for you guys full time after the 85 baseball season.
Right.
And that's because we started on TBS in April of 85.
Okay.
And I remember we were at the office there on Briarbend, office off of South Boulevard, and it was late. And Jimmy had gone. I guess he had gone to New York to negotiate to get the TBS time slot. And that TBS time slot, obviously, he got it. He came back and he mentioned that he wanted you and I to do the broadcast. That really kind of changed everything for the promotion and for us, didn't it?
Oh, yes. Yes. That was our nationwide signal,
Right.
the superstation.
Sure.
Everybody, and even Ted Turner in his book, he said that wrestling is what made the superstation. That at 6:05 we came up live, on the superstation. I take that back. We were taping at that time.
Right.
We go down Saturday mornings and tape
Saturday
it. But
mornings
at
tape it.
6:05, there is World Championship Wrestling or Georgia Championship Wrestling, and it changed it for us. It also helped Vince. That was the money for his first WrestleMania.
Okay.
That he did. But man, those early flights down there, and the 75 to 80 people in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the same fans, crazy fans, wonderful fans.
Right.
The wrestlers getting dressed in the offices and all around, and always getting complaints about from the people in production, that get your wrestlers out of my office and they're sweaty, messed up. Yeah.
So I'm curious, can we talk a little bit more about the whole Black Saturday thing? You see Vince McMahon pop up on the old Georgia time slot. Did you immediately think, man, that was a missed opportunity? Or how did that deal come together for you to, get back that time slot for Southern Wrestling and Jim Crockett Promotions?
Jim Barnett was the catalyst. Number one, Ted Turner and Vince McMahon did not get along. It's like oil and water. Right. No matter what was happening, it was going to end up in the courts somehow. So Jim Barnett saw this opportunity. He came to Jimmy and said, hey, and he talked to Jerry Hogan, who was the executive vice president. Ted was the president, and Jerry Hogan said, and Jim talking to Jerry said, well, if we do it this way, we'll avoid court. And the Vince and Ted don't have to talk to each other, which they did more than talk, I guess you might say. So, that was the opportunity, and Jim Barnett brokered that deal, and we started. And I those Saturdays, really, that was like a rocket ship for us. I mean, because we instantly were all over the United States.
Right.
David, we had so much fun. When I look back on it, we laughed a lot. We had, because Dusty and Rick and all those guys did some crazy things, but I don't think, and I guess you never do, I don't think we realized how much of an impact we had on people moving forward.
No, I didn't.
Because they still talk about us.
Yes.
I mean, they do.
I see. But we had, like you said, we had fun. I mean, because I was a fan, you sort of kept us, going the right direction. I would go off somewhere,
I can't tell you how many times a week we get tweeted, look at him, Tony, look at him. Fans loved your line. Look at him. And I think one of the more famous things that we get tweeted about where people want us to discuss it or watch it or talk about it, I figure why not just talk about it with you? The Nikita Koloff clothesline from hell. We get asked about that at least every other week. What can you tell us about that moment?
That was like, when you were a kid and you're doing these chases, at night and running through yards, and all of a sudden one of the neighbors has clothesline out. Well, running into that clothesline, not being prepared for it, that's what it was like. Because he even told me, he said, I'm going to enjoy this. You have pissed me off for so long that don't expect me to hold back. And he didn't. But the thing is, I didn't know when. It was, I knew it was coming, but I didn't know when. And I didn't know it was, and I felt like I was running through a yard and got hit, ran into a clothesline. I felt like I just flipped over. I did, and just laid there.
Yeah.
Because I laid there trying to figure out, okay, are any bones broken? How am I? Am I all right here?
It was on an edition of Worldwide. I didn't have it at the studios. It was a Worldwide. And the reason I remember that is, and I'm looking at it here, David, from another perspective. We had you gave the bad guys like Nikita and Ivan, you always gave them a hard time.
Sure.
You told them exactly what you think fans were thinking.
Right.
And so you gave them a hard time. But I remember I'm standing there and we're doing the commentary. We're near the set there, back away from the ring. And I remember thinking to myself, boy, David is really getting on his ass tonight. I mean, more than usual. And our director is a guy from South Carolina named Toby. Remember Toby? I can't remember his name.
Toby Jenkins.
Toby Jenkins. I remember in my ear, Toby says, okay, we're 3 minutes into this. When is it going to happen? And I'm thinking, why did he say that? And then just by the time he said it, boom, I will go, oh shit. And I think somebody says, you better get in there and check on David. And I was like, I couldn't move. I'm thinking, oh my God, he really pissed him off. And so I can remember that. That's one of my most vivid memories of you and I doing Worldwide together. I mean,
yeah,
it was,
that was not very many people knew about it.
No,
it was going to happen.
Yeah.
But matter of fact, it was Shelby,
North Carolina. Absolutely. On the stage there.
Yep.
And Shelby was your first TV too, right, Tony?
I can't remember what my first TV was.
Union, South Carolina.
Union, South Carolina. Okay. But gosh, Conrad, we went to so many places and it does all kind of wash together. It does. But I mean, that clothesline, I remember vividly. I remember the first show too, but I say that because I remember how excited we were. And I remember Dusty would say, you know what? He said, David is raw. He said, he is so excited out there and his excitement is contagious. And he said, you know why it is? And I said, no. He said, because it's his company. He said, that's why his excitement is genuine. He wants his company to succeed. So when he's out there and saying what he's saying and getting real loud, he said, it's genuine. So, and that's why we had so much fun, because I think you and I working together was really genuine. Like you said, we both loved the sport. It was your business. And so we were out there having a good time with it.
Right. And then you sort of took ownership too, in being that announcer, taking the wrestlers and making them as big as they can be.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. We knew our jobs. We did, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we had, some cameramen, you had Doug Dellinger, out there, and Jackie, of course.
Right.
I know I'm deviating right now. I talked to Doug last night. He is having some heart problems.
Really?
It's being checked on. I said, damn it, Doug, you croak on me, I am going to kick your butt. But,
well, I hope he stopped smoking.
Oh, I think he has. He has.
Okay, good.
Hasn't stopped eating. He's 300 plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a big one.
Yeah. I remember I was in the lead car with Doug Dellinger, Gene Anderson's funeral, at the police car that drove Gene from the church to the gravesite, and we were talking and I told Dusty that story, and he said, Doug Dellinger's been in the Charlotte police force for like 20 years, and he's still a buck private. The only thing he does is drive his lead funerals. I said. Well, yeah, Doug, I'm glad you brought him up, because Doug was really instrumental and very important in our company. He really was.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And very important, really, to me, when, we sold to Turner. He was the only way I could find out what was going to hit me at times, But, yeah, he's a great friend that he can't complain.
Conrad, let's talk about that sale to Turner with David, because I know that's something that everyone wants to know. And David, you obviously maintained a presence with the company after that, but 1988 was a big transitional year for your family, for you, and I guess we can go back and talk about the move to Dallas and with Jimmy and Dusty moving to Dallas. I mean, to be honest with you, I really don't think that settled too well with the family. Am I right to say that?
No. I mean, no, it did not. It was the wrong deal.
Right.
Dusty wanted to go home. I can't blame him for that. And Jimmy in a new marriage, and it was, if he had waited, we'd just pick up the pieces. As far as Mid-South Wrestling.
Sure.
They own so much money, but he decided that no, we're going to do this, and so it ended up, and it's split.
Right.
But you just, and the cost also doubled.
Right.
For everything, and then too, all of a sudden the amounts of money owed to TV stations through Mid-South Wrestling, those started appearing, and it was asked, and we just couldn't keep up.
Right.
Just couldn't, so, and Turner saw an opportunity, a Jim Barnett again, saw an opportunity to, take this over, and, said, this is it. And I fought the sale.
Really?
In fact, Rick Flair and Rick didn't want to go. And I said, damn it, I'm going to take it. And I'll go chapter 11, but my mother at the time said, David, you're going to do this. So I did it.
Yeah.
And we, and I really believe even today, that we could have survived and done well, with Turner, but there again, because, Turner was good. I survived it.
Sure.
Jimmy and Francis had problems with it.
Right.
Jackie definitely survived.
Yeah. Yeah.
You did it. You did well. You're doing well now with AEW. So
yeah. And with a guy named Conrad Thompson too, by the way.
Yeah. By the way, does Conrad he control AEW?
Mr. Crockett, we're going to bounce. Sorry, David, you told me to call you David off air. We're going to bounce around a little bit here, but when you were talking about these old names that we hadn't really talked about a lot, it made me realize we haven't told you this, but we talk about Klondike Bill a lot on our show. Talk to us about Klondike. You got some fun memories of him, I'm sure, because he did stuff not only in wrestling, but baseball too, right?
Oh, yes. Klondike was the groundskeeper there. He would get on that tractor and just go around in the circles and do his thing. And then with the ring truck, he'd do it with a pickup, and he'd get, he figured out how to, get the ring on a pickup truck and put these extra heavy springs on it. And then he'd just go down the road. And eventually it was he and Jackie's son, that would go down the road and put up the rings. And Klondike, though, after putting up the rings, especially when places we go, that pay-per-views, Baltimore, I think, was the first time that Klondike had a Long Island iced tea. And he didn't have one, he had two. And by the second one, Klondike was a total different person. He was, this walking around like this big grizzly bear. But what a great guy. Really.
A great character. Great character.
Yes.
And George Teuton Harris was also at the ballpark as well.
Right.
who was like the laziest son of a bitch ever. And Klondike hated George. Hated him. I mean, always George doesn't do shit around here. Nothing. He'll find a way to get out of work. And George used to, Conrad, here's another story. I know you mentioned Klondike. We've had so many, but George would go back in the ballpark in the home locker room after they would work on before a game, after they work on the field, and he'd go back there and take a shower. And he'd sit there, and George was Teuton, and he would sit there butt naked and talk to those baseball players. And baseball players would walk in, just shake their head. This real fat, naked guy just sit there and talk. You know how George could talk.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
One time, Francis's son, Ron, I think, took George's white underwear and put him up on the flagpole along with the American flag. It was like a size 50 white Hanes poop stain underwear.
Tidy whities.
Tidy whities. And George was just something, and man, it really pissed off Klondike Bill. But knowing Bill, how did Bill actually start with the Crockett family? Do you remember? Just one of the wrestlers that
Bill was one of the wrestlers that you could trust. That when he said he was going to do something, he did it.
Right.
That, when it came that we needed another person for ring trucks, Klondike was, one of those people that, yes, he was a Canadian, and, we knew that he could do it.
Yeah.
Like Wally Ducey. Wally was a former wrestler.
Right.
So, and Klondike, putting Wally and Klondike together for a while, that was, worse than
I bet.
George Teuton Harris. But there again, Klondike learned, and then he started, and then he tweaked it his own way.
Yeah.
But we could always count that the ring was going to be there. The ring was going to be up.
Mm-hmm.
And there was that trust. You don't have to worry about it. Klondike's got it.
Yeah, he had a great work ethic. He really did.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and he was a degenerate too, as we know, and know the stories
God. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
about
The golden string there. Oh. Tell me about what see, I shouldn't say surprised. I'm happy, honored that people still remember, what we did, Tony. And, but there again, it's like, why haven't we faded into the sunset? Why do people still pay attention to what we did? That I'm sure that even you today, even when you're doing AEW, I know you're just doing it at the stadium now, but when you were out, people are still asking you about, Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling.
Sure.
What was it, or is it why do they still remember?
I think it's nostalgia. I think it's like, when your favorite songs come on, from on the radio from when you were growing up, or your favorite old movie from when you were a kid, or, Tony Schiavone still lovingly talks about old TV shows that he remembers seeing. And I think there is something to the idea that your first 10 years of fandom as a professional wrestling fan, like what you grew up on, you're always sort of chasing that rush of how you felt as a fan. That was your favorite stuff. You were at your peak fandom, and we keep watching the current stuff, hoping it'll scratch our itch, but it never does. So we go back and watch the old stuff, and it's just like an old comfortable pair of slippers. It's just familiar and comfortable, and you don't throw them out and you hang on to them too long.
Well, maybe it's too that it shows like yours that the younger people are listening to it going, well, we have to see this. What is it about, these people that, they're still talking about them.
Yeah.
And so they watch. And so I guess maybe they're hooked because young people, ask me about, the wrestling, because I know that they weren't alive when we had it.
Right.
So it has to be your podcast and places like that, I would think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am.
Oh no, I don't think you're wrong. I do want to talk about Magnum Ta. We haven't talked about him yet. It's a real tragedy, that his career was cut short the way it was, but it's almost become spoken as if it were fact that he was in line to be the next NWA world champion. He was going to be Crockett's answer to Hulk Hogan. I've never actually asked you about that though. What were the plans for Magnum had that tragic accident not happened?
To be champion.
Okay.
Definitely. he had all the tools. You know, the camera loved him. He had the gift of gab, the physique, and the athletic ability to back it up. His skills in the ring, you know, that his matches, he and Tully and Rick and you know, you name it, they're all fantastic. Anybody, I don't care who it is, you would have to get into those matches. I mean, it's you become a fan. There's you know, it's unlike today where every minute in the ring is scripted, and if you miss something, oh my God, you know, that, you know, you have to go figure it out and go back and do it again.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to put the time in and really not say anything to the opponent. You might say a couple of words or syllables, but that flow, to me, it's like a concert. You know, if you think about the flow of a concert, up and down, the music is taking you where it wants to. And Magnum had that ability to take you, you know, let your mind go in neutral and put you through this match, and you're just drenched, you know, with excitement afterwards. Yes, he would have been the world champion, and he would have been a fantastic champion.
Of course, we remember that accident happened in October of '86. Of course, November of '86 was Starrcade. And once Magnum goes down, Dusty pivots and makes the decision to turn Nikita into a baby face. And it's Flair and Nikita in the main event for the world title at Starrcade '86. But I assume the original plan would have been Magnum Flair at Starrcade '86.
Yeah. Yes.
Starrcade '87 is a horse of a different color. We move it from Greensboro. We're going to try Chicago. It's going to be a smaller arena. We've also got Vince McMahon trying to sabotage the show and go head to head with Survivor Series. And, he tries to do a bit of a power play where he says, if you carry that event, you can't have WrestleMania, carry my event instead. And it was disastrous timing, especially with what you guys had just done with Watts and all that. In hindsight, was Starrcade '87 like the beginning of the end?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, we shouldn't have gone to Chicago. I think the Chicago was just because of the name.
Right.
The building was totally wrong. You know, it was, for me, it was a nightmare trying to, you know, to move in, set up. We didn't have any time at all to do anything. And I knew, you know, at that time, you know, this was sort of our last hurrah. I could feel it, you know, and when we were discussing everything in the locker room. Tony, you were in there. Jim Ross was announcing for us at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I, when Jimmy said, David, you go ahead and take it. And I just knew this was, you know, and usually he always, you know, just sort of did it himself. And then I just knew that he finally realized that, you know, I was right. And because I kept on telling him, this is not the thing to do. And so, you know, we made the best of it at that time.
Garvin.
And it stood like hell that night too.
Yeah.
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 Garvin was the world champ there. Flair was the challenger. That's been something that's been debated a lot since. In hindsight, was Garvin the right guy, or was there a different main event that you could have presented, do you think?
You still there?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Oh, your screen went blank for a second.
All good. I was saying, the whole Garvin as champion thing has been debated a lot. In hindsight, was Garvin the right guy, or was there a different main event that could have maybe given a different result for that show?
There could have been, but we didn't have it.
Right.
That was one of the problems that, you know, Vince was doing his best to take our talent. And so, you know, Garvin was one of the ones that stuck with us, you know, and Rick stuck with us. that I think Roddy Piper left at that time, didn't he?
Yeah,
He left
Piper
a
was
little bit
gone
earlier,
by
but
then.
he did leave. Yeah.
So that we just didn't have the talent that we could depend on to put the belt on to give it back to Rick. Now, I wish we did, but we didn't.
Yeah.
Do you think, and obviously Dusty was a genius. I mean, created so many things that people still celebrate to this day, the Starcades and the War Games and the Great American Bashes and so many different successes outside of the ring, just his creativity. But do you think creatively Dusty was just burnt out and maybe on fumes by that point, or was he just separated because there was Charlotte and Dallas and the distance created a problem?
Well, yes, I don't think it was his fault. I think there again, our talent, we didn't have the talent that we needed to sustain what we were doing. We were in the midst of a rebuild.
Right.
So, we could have, but in hindsight, yes, we should have bypassed this pay-per-view, but we were already committed.
Right.
So you go through it and you have to rebuild, and we rebuilt so many times. You look at, the plane crash with Rick and I and John Valentine, so we had to have a tournament for the U.S. Championship.
Right.
Then golly, there was, it just was, the stars were not lining up for us. Well, I wish we had more time. We were just cash wise, we were just going, it was,
Yeah.
it was horrible. So, but talent, we could have. Garvin, there again, was a great talent, but he didn't have the charisma of a Ric Flair, that he in the ring, he was a tough sucker.
Right.
I mean, he would pound you like John Valentine, but he just didn't have that gift of gab, that he needed. He probably should have had somebody like
Dr. Death, Barry Windham.
Well, Barry self-exploded each time. Barry always he would get up there, then he'd leave. He would get right up there, and then for some reason he said, I gotta go. And just, Dusty built him up so many times, and then he left. Because Barry, yes, he had the work ethic. He had the camera presence. There again, he wasn't as good as Blackjack, as far as on the mic.
Yeah, on-screen presence, absolutely.
Yeah. But great talent. Great talent there.
Well, obviously Dusty had the charisma, but we had done Flair and Dusty countless times.
Yeah.
So you couldn't go back to that. Right.
Do that. Yeah. It was too many times.
Sure.
You had to find something, and Garvin was it.
A lot of people wonder, did the company wait too long? By then it was WCW to anoint Luger. Would you have thought maybe Luger could have worked in '87 after the whole, he's in the Horseman, he's out of the Horseman thing?
He could have, but the trust of putting the belt on him.
Right.
There was a trust factor there that you just don't know. So
Right.
you don't do it.
David, you bring up a good point. I think that fans don't realize, and we're not knocking on anybody at all behind the scenes, but you got to have a champion, not only who's got the charisma, got the talent, but that you can trust to lead your company.
There are your representative. They are the face of the company.
Sure.
That everything they do, and in this case, it's the NWA, that they are that champion, and they have to not have side deals, or they have to walk the walk, and it's hard to trust, people. And that was our problem then, that getting people to buy into it, to take ownership. There were a lot of them that, they'd want the belt, but they wouldn't take ownership of that belt, and be the representative. So we had to do what we had to do. Conrad, you're talking about, you're going to go see my brother, Jim. He's definitely going to have your conversations with him. He knows all the secrets. I probably know a very few, but there were so many backroom car talk decisions that were made away from the office, that at a bar or wherever that, he knows the answer to.
Right.
Well, he does.
Well,
I mean, just take Nassau Coliseum when the Rock and Roll Express walked out.
right.
Why'd they do that? So right then we had to figure something out.
Were you shocked when Arn and Tully left? I know things got rocky there with their relationship with you guys for a bit, and eventually Tully, I think, said some things to the Turner folks that you didn't like, and he was kicked off the plane, and they went and met with Vince the next day and quit the following day, I believe. Did you see that coming, or was that sort of out of left field since the Horsemen had been such a big part of the program?
Wow. It was out of left field for me. Yes. I knew, Tully was always very
Vocal.
So, sometimes you didn't know what was real and what wasn't, because he was always vocal about something.
Right.
Yeah. And he still is today. But Iron, it was a surprise to me. And I was sorry to see it, but, Iron did well up there.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. He ended up getting a full-time job there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he did. David, now we get sold to Turner. I go to the WWE for a bit, come back, but now here we all are working on the 12th floor at the CNN Center at South Tower. Different atmosphere for all of us. You still lived in Charlotte, and you've always lived in Charlotte. And I may have known this, but did you commute every week, every day? How did that happen?
I commuted every week, if possible. I lived, well, for the first 5 years, I had a consulting agreement. And so that meant basically you're out of here, at the end of 5 years.
Okay.
But I was asked to stay after 5 years. And so, Valerie and I talked about it, and, my kids were in high school. Mark had just, he was up at Appalachian State, and it was, I said, it's unfair to move you guys to Atlanta, then me be gone, because that was it, every Monday night. And then we were producing on Thursdays. If I remember correctly, we produced another show on the road on Thursdays.
Right.
And it just, so I'd get back when I could, but I'd lived with my brother-in-law for quite a while. Then I'd rented a place, and then I finally got an apartment. So built up a lot of air miles.
Yeah. Oh boy. You, like all of us who went through Jim Hurd, Kip Fry, Bill Watts, the committee of Sharon Stella Oli and Eric, and then Eric takes over. So we saw the whole gamut of that. And I really felt, and this is my opinion, I really felt that when at the first part of it, I really felt bad about our company. I was not confident in our company at all.
No, you were the right thing. You did the right thing as far as going to Vince. They took our company, and everybody at Turner wanted to take a piece out of us or run an expense through our company.
Right.
And we were just one big ping pong back and forth.
Right.
We had no direction until Bill Shaw took over. Bill Shaw at that time was head of HR at Turner. Nobody else wanted us, at Turner. And nobody, Scott Sassa, nobody wanted us there. But Ted wanted us. He knew about, our ratings. We always had good ratings, television-wise. And Bill Shaw stepped forward and said, I will take this, this company and, make it better. And he did. He was the one because, he was it Bob Dew?
Bob Dew.
Yeah. And he was on his way out, and Bill was, talking about having someone else come in. And I talked to him about, I love this company, and I would love to do it. And he said, no way in hell. Can I let a Crockett, do it? He said, David, it just can't. And I said, well, understand, but then that's when he told me about Eric, and that Eric had talked to him, and he said, you've got to help him. You've got to protect him. And man, did I take some hits. But yeah, I did. And in a lot of ways, and while Bill was there, he let all of us take sort of ownership of our pieces. And if you took ownership, you had to accept that responsibility and accept the consequences, which, I thought was great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then with Eric was, looking, he had great ideas, looking, but you had to build, and believe it or not, you had to build him up, jocks and jills quite a lot, at that time. I had to drive him home. But there again, he finally hit his stride, and, he's doing well today.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Sadello Oli thing was crazy. Who was after
Jim Hurd was Kip Fry. Remember the lawyer? And he didn't even last a year, I don't think, or maybe lasted a year.
Well, I want to talk about Hurd for a minute. I don't know if you know this, Mr. Crockett. I'll send you a link, but I sat down with Mr. Hurd, I don't know, a couple months ago, and talked to him for the first time, I don't know, maybe ever since he was in wrestling. We did a long interview, and it was fantastic. But we, of course, talked a lot about his dispute with Ric Flair, and obviously the company's in Turner's hands then, but you knew Flair, you knew Hurd, you knew Dellinger, you knew the players. Were you surprised that thing went down the way it did? It was a pissing match over the belt and Flair's out of here.
Not with Jim. Jim was that determined. He was his way or the highway in a lot of respects. He was trying to show law and order. Matter of fact, he made the statement to me that, if we can't affect and control this wrestling, let's woo them with pizzazz as far as pyrotechnics and lights and everything else. That's when we became, I remember when in Chattanooga, we had a pay-per-view and Abdullah the Butcher was cage match. It's a wonder the building didn't blow up. We had so much gunpowder.
Yeah.
And the gutters around the cage to light when he was put into the chair. And they were hitting the cage back and forth. Well, that gunpowder was flowing out of the gutters and landed on the ring. And so when that stuff ignited, wow. Yeah. Abby loved it. He loved it. Abdullah the butcher, he said, "Oh, fantastic. But yeah, Hurd couldn't control the wrestlers, but that Navy guy in him, he wanted to control. I guess he thought his job was control, but there again, it's more manipulation than control. You can control other ways. You can make them think the way you want to, and that's an art form that I don't think he really had. He talked to me a lot of times about the carvery. Did he talk to you about that?
No.
Yeah, the carvery. He wanted to have a steakhouse where you could go and have your own cut of meat, cut for you at the table. But he loved the wine, loved Italian wine, Italian food.
Talk to me about, I've always been curious about this. When you guys sold to Turner, it felt like your brother was under the impression he was going to still have a big role in wrestling operations. And it's not too many weeks, and here comes Jim Herd. Were you guys shocked when Herd came in and was seemingly in a position of power that maybe once upon a time was supposed to be a Crockett?
Jimmy was shocked more than I. There again, because I didn't want the Turner thing. I figured that after my consulting agreement, my ass was out of there.
Right.
They were going to hang me up and nail me to the cross, so to speak. But it hurt. But I think that they wanted to make it a Turner. They didn't want Crockett involved. I think that was some of the backside dealing. Jimmy didn't go into it with his eyes wide open. I think when you talk to him, you will find that out. That yes, it was a surprise. And I think when he went in to Herd and who was it that was head of the company that Turner had?
Petrick.
Jack Petrick.
Yeah, Jack Petrick. Well, Jack Petrick and Jim Herd were best friends.
Right.
All right. So Jimmy, walked in there one day and just lowered the boom, as far as, what the do you think you're doing? And this is the wrong way. And . Well, that's next day is when Jimmy was gone, sent home.
Mm.
Yeah. Jimmy could lower the boom.
Yep.
He sure could. Yeah, he really could. We all had great runs with Eric. Now explain to us, David, explain to our listeners exactly what your role was behind the scenes with Eric. Cause I mean, you did tons of different stuff for Eric and the company.
Well, Eric, made me vice president of production, which that's just a word. It was anything that he wanted me to do, any from why can't we go to this building? Well, we can, but here's how much it's going to cost. Well, he always had a blank check.
Right.
When we had the Olympics in Atlanta, why can't we go to Disney? Well, so I went down there with him and he said, I want to go. I want to come here. This is the place for us. Can we do it? Yeah, we can do it, and so we did it, and yes, it costs money, and no, we couldn't, we can't go back because of the thing we did with Dusty and the ambulance and their switchboard was overflowed with calls, and the people from Walt Disney World came, the suits as I call them, came down and talked to me. He said, "You'll never be back." I said, "Okay." Which right, and going out to Sturgis, it was okay. That's what we're going to do. The production, that in a lot of ways it was pulling that away from the people at Turner. That's why, with Joyce, we hired Joyce.
Yeah. Joyce
Had our own
Atkinson.
crew.
Yeah.
Yeah, had our own crew. That yes, we had the Turner truck. The Turner truck, if they did not do what we wanted, then we'd rent another truck. That when it came to the uplinks, it was I got screwed. It was my ass. What had happened was that Eric said, "All right, if the live broadcast goes down, it's going to be your ass. If something goes wrong, it's going to be your ass. Not anybody else's." So I started, working it out, and I made sure that Rick Ball at that time, who was with Mobile Satellite Connections, they were our uplink company, because I knew that they weren't going to screw me on the satellite. There was no excuse there. That Mike Satrazemis with the power, the generator power, that I was responsible. If the building went down, I had power for the building. No truck would ever go down, because it did. And I said, well, it's my ass. It's not going to go down again. Because I had to, who was it? Well, Dick Cheatham there at Turner at the time. He said, why do you have so much generator power? I said, Dick, do you want the responsibility? If it goes down? I said, sure, I don't have to have it. And he said, well, no. And I said, well, that's why I have it. It's called an insurance policy.
It's called doing a live show too, right? I mean, you've got to be
We
on
don't
the
have
air.
that chance.
Right.
Lights, the cameras, the entrances, the vignettes, I started, there were a lot of balls being thrown up in the air. And, I wish that, I don't, and I'm going to bring this out, that there was a relationship there with Keith Mitchell. At one time, Eric came to me and said, David, you've got to fire Keith Mitchell. Well, why? You had to fire him. He's causing problems there in production downstairs. I said, no, he's not. Yes, he is. Do it now. I said, God, Eric? And there were other people behind the scenes that, had been pushing Eric's. And so that totally destroyed my relationship with Keith. Keith, of course, went to HR, which I am so happy he did. And, he was there, and, he is, has a great job there at AEW.
Yeah.
So, and to this, it just, I've got a sour spot for that, and the people that were behind that.
Well, help me fill the gaps in. It's been 20 years. What does it matter? Who was pushing Eric in that direction?
You want me to say?
Yeah, go ahead. Say, Tony.
Craig Leathers.
Okay.
Yes, that's right.
Well,
Yeah.
He wanted Keith's job, and then he wanted my job.
I see.
Sure. He sure did.
And right?
Yeah.
He
wanted to take over the company. It's what he did, basically.
Yeah, he eventually, wanted Eric's position.
Mm-hmm.
So how you do that? You just work your way up,
Mm-hmm.
knock the pins out from under him.
Yeah. And right. And swerve and spin and play both sides against the middle and all the political games. So there were political games David done obviously in production as well as there was, with the wrestling during that time as well. So
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is that's one of the big reasons to me that Turner got rid of us, that they didn't like, that was too much of an aggravation. At one time, we were making money hand over fist for them. We were getting the ratings,
mm-hmm.
but it was all the other stuff, there that they did not need, Bill Watts carrying a gun to, CNN Center.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great. And then the calls to HR, about search. It just, nah.
Yeah.
And I always say, guys, you're going to kill the golden goose. And we finally did.
Well,
but I'm glad to see that they're back.
Yeah. And Keith Mitchell, by the way, is doing a great job. And
Rick, and I have to say, there was I guess there was a reunion there in Atlanta, and Craig walked up to me and said, "No hard feelings." Yeah, it's it's not what he did to me. It's what happened to the company.
Yeah.
And I still miss it, Tony. I had to say I still miss being around it. I mean, it's hard for me to watch, honestly.
Yeah.
It really is.
It's changed a great deal, David, and for the better, as far as working conditions and people getting along and the lack of swerving, at least on the AEW.
I was going to say, it has an AEW.
Yeah. And I agree, and yeah, I'd love to be able to do it, but hell, it's past my time, I guess. But I look at the two shows, and I can tell you right now that AEW production wise is far superior to WWE. I mean, when they go head to head, I flip back and forth. Look, there's not a question who's going to win here. I still can't get used to any of them as far as some of the wrestling. But there's not a thing I could do about that anyway. But production wise, it's just AEW is so far superior.
Well, it's changed. The wrestling has changed tremendously. David, when WCW went down, sold to the WWE, you go back to Charlotte, and you've been working with the Red Cross, right?
Yes. I started working with the Red Cross. Matter of fact, Katrina was my first. I went down to Louisiana. Mm-hmm. Started in Monroe and ended up in Baton Rouge. I spent 3 weeks in Louisiana, and then I went to El Paso, Texas, to Hatch, New Mexico, back to Louisiana, Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, New York, for Sandy, North Carolina coast, 18 years.
Wow.
Years, but I'm not doing that now.
Right.
With COVID and everything, it's just, that's sort of changed a lot. I still have some friends that are doing that, and, to keep safe, they sleep in their cars or in the Red Cross vehicle instead of congregating, in a gym.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That has to be, I would think, a very difficult but rewarding work.
Very, very, very. Well, when I say, I guess, it is difficult, but there again, it was how I got my adrenaline rush, and I didn't have TV.
Yeah.
So it was the chaos of a disaster, and I thrived with that. And yes, you're out there with people that are totally confused, distressed, and all of a sudden, you are taking them and bringing them out of that deep depression, and you can give them something, whether it's a hotel room, money to help fix their house, food, their medicine, glasses, now that we can provide anything that you do at home, kidney dialysis, we can do that for you. That we have arrangements with so many providers to provide equipment and services that, it's not just Red Cross, it's our other partners in this, which is really terrific. Now, I want to speak of something to you, Tony, that you cycle, right?
Yes.
All right. I used to be a big cyclist.
Really?
MS 150 each year from Charlotte to Myrtle Beach. 5 years I did that.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a little bit beyond me. That's
I was just, you've got me though motivated again. And now that I've had rotator cuff surgery on both shoulders, elbow rebuilt, knee replacement. And so
holy hell. Well, you must have taken a lot of bumps.
Nikita just killed me.
Well, no, yeah, cycling is tremendous. It is just wonderful.
And you have such a great place down there to do it.
Yeah.
Now, do you have a road bike or is it a hybrid?
No, it's a hybrid.
Hybrid. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I got a Peloton too for the cold weather. So.
Now that is great. You have one of those that you get to race people in New York or wherever.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
That's called having Conrad Thompson money.
I can't thank you enough today, Mr. Crockett, for taking the time.
You can send me a Conrad Peloton. Okay.
No problem. I'm so excited that we got to do this and put you guys back together again, especially with the way this is going to look and fans are going to see it like on the old set. We got to do this again some other time because I feel like we just scratched the surface. There's so much more to cover and talk about. And as you said at the top of the show, we could talk for weeks and not get to it all. So thanks for carving out time today.
With Jimmy now, stabilized with his dialysis, he's a different person when I talk to him. So to get on your show with him, and we could really have a good time. Yeah, he could tell us we'll have to ask him about Chicken Ranch.
Oh,
yeah, where he and Dusty and Rick and the Four Horsemen disappeared for a week or two.
I have it on good authority. Arn Anderson wasn't there. Arn wasn't there. I know for sure Arn wasn't there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Just saying, I'm trying not to get canceled here. And on that note, Mr. Crockett, we greatly appreciate you taking the time. This has been awesome. I hope everyone has a great Christmas and a great New Year's and just an awesome holiday season. It's been a strange year, but boy, we're going out on a high note to finish this show out with Mr. Crockett joining us. And we normally never veer from the format. We just watch old wrestling and make fun of it. But when they said, hey, do whatever you want, we don't care. I thought, well, let's get a guest. And as Tony and I freestyled, who better than David Crockett?
All right. Okay, guys. It's been terrific, and really Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and be safe.
Thanks, David. As always, great talking to you, buddy.
Yeah. Love you, big guy. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Bye-bye.
So Tony, how about that?
Tremendous.
I mean,
yeah,
that's a pretty cool treat here for everyone. And we appreciate everyone tuning in today. And don't forget, you've got another bonus episode coming your way from Tony Schiavone and myself. It's all happening this week. And of course, next week we'll be back with another What Happened When. Tony, looks like it's about that time.
It is about that time. And just like my waistline, we are desperately out of time.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.